Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me. So today is going to be a little bit of a somber video. We're going to talk about David Cameron, well, Lord Cameron, should I say, and his visit to Ukraine and what that means. So whatever you think of David Cameron, it kind of doesn't matter because he is the guy in that role and that's his responsibility, and he's, and whatever decisions he makes, they're the decisions he makes. Now, what I will do is before people pass judgment, I just want to cast, and again, whatever you think of him, that's absolutely fine. What I want to do is I want to cast your minds back to when, round about the Brexit time when he had to resign as Prime Minister. He actually cried when he was resigning. So now you can take from that whatever you want. But, to me, that kind of says somebody who, at the very least had a lot of emotion attached to that job. And I'd like to think he has the same emotion doing this job now. He's really well contacted. He's got, he's really well thought of. He's quite a prestigious operator and he's got a lot of authority. That said, guys, all right, it is what it is. Now, he's gone out to Ukraine. He's had a visit out to Ukraine. And, I'll just read you the article, the headline here. I'll put this in the bio, guys. Where are we? UK plans to ramp up weapons production for Ukraine and Western defence as Lord Cameron reveals envoy will oversee it as a national priority. And then there's a picture of him. I actually know where that is. He's on the roof at the Intercontinental. So what he's basically said there is, the UK are going to produce more weapons in the UK to send to Ukraine. And this is a stark warning because I've been saying this for the longest time. It's all right being able to have the weapons, but you need people who know how to use these weapons. And without being able to put that into into a strategic battlefield plan and then also have the capacity to execute that plan, it's absolutely pointless. What do I mean by that? Well, take two examples. You've got a load of guns and ammunition, and you give the exact same amount. So you give 8 rifles, 8 times 10 magazines, so 80 magazines. You get what I'm saying, guys. A load of guns, a load of ammunition to 8 guys that you just find off the street. Okay, absolutely fine. And then go and ask them to attack a position. What's going to happen? What's going to be the outcome? Okay, right. Keep that in your head. Now you give the same weapons, the same ammunition to 8 highly trained paratroopers. What's going to be the outcome? So it's all right pumping weapons in there if you've got no one trained to exploit these weapons, to use them to their full capacity. And let's not forget as well, a lot of these weapon systems, a lot of these weapon systems that have been developed have been developed for the West, for Western tactics. Now, I know what people will be thinking, oh, weapon's a weapon, a bomb's a bomb. Yeah, it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. So these weapons, when they were put into production, they will have come from a request. So a request will have come from a colonel, whatever, and they will have wanted that specific piece of equipment to fit in with their tactics. And that's why this equipment gets made. Now, just shipping it out to people who don't know how to use them, yes, it's going to have some effect, but nowhere near as much as if you can put those weapons into the hands of people who are trained and know how to use them. I know that the Ukrainians have been having, ground training in the UK. They've been taught tactics, and that, I've no doubt that training is top tier. The problem is when they go back to their units in Ukraine, their middle tier commanders don't know how to use them, and the whole Russian system, the Soviet system, doesn't empower junior commanders, lance corporals. It doesn't empower them to go out on patrols on their own, to plan their own missions, to say, hey, Vladimir, go plan me a fighting patrol around this grid area. It doesn't empower that. So what's the reality of the situation is, a lot of these troops are going out to Ukraine and just doing the exact same job that anyone could do. Sat in a trench, taking artillery, running into another trench, kind of day-to-day stuff. So it's not really productive, sending more. It is productive, but it's not having the effect that it could have if trained soldiers went out there with their own weapons. And remember from yesterday's video, you know, it's come quite off the back now of the imminency of French troops going to be on the ground. And I know what people are saying, the French troops, they don't have this, and that's fine. I totally take that on board. But what those French troops will do when they do enter Ukraine, they will open a precedence then for other troops to move in, and then French will take French will take the back seat, and then, you know, the crosshairs will be off the French, and then the British will move in, whatever, X, Y, and Z. But the reality is now you can pretty much guarantee NATO troops will be in Ukraine, as I've said all along. So that's basically what's happened with David Cameron and his trip to Ukraine on the weapons production side. Now, he's also come out and said, I'll just read you the headline, guys, and I'll talk about it and tell you what it actually means. Moscow rages over Cameron strike remarks. Russia's three-part plan to claim victory. So basically, Lord Cameron, he's come out and he said, you know, Ukraine has the right to strike, in Russian ground. And he's absolutely right. You know, Ukraine are on a war. They can do pretty much whatever they want. Now, with that statement, they can do whatever they want. That's fine. But they also need to accept that there'll be ramifications of that. There'll be pushback, you know, and there'll be escalation. In the same sense that Britain have the right to do whatever they want as a country and nobody else can tell them. So it's kind of a non-statement from David Cameron saying that Ukraine has the right, because yes, of course they have the right, but they should also understand that if they do start escalating in this manner, then the Russians are going to escalate even further. And that's the responsibility that they take by accepting that right to strike into Russia. What I do think is interesting, though, even more, is just the lines in the sand that are being drawn between the two, between all nations at the moment. And guys, I'm telling you now, okay, this is the powder keg that's going to explode, and I think it's going to explode this month. I've said this. I've been very vocal about this. I've said when it's going to happen, you know, and if it doesn't happen on that day, that's fine. It's absolutely inevitable now. Look what's happening. You know, we're ramping up weapons production. You know, David Cameron coming out and saying these things. And then you've got to look at this from the Russian side of things, you know, the Russian perspective on this. What is the Russian perspective on this? Well, as far as the Russians are concerned, Britain have just upped their production to give Ukraine more weapons. And Britain are telling Ukraine to fire into Russia. So that puts Britain in the crosshairs. There was an article on, what was it? I can't remember. One of the mainstream channels, and it was talking about British air defences. And then they said, you know, what do we have to defend? And people are thinking, oh, well, it'll just be barracks. Yes, it will. So nuclear doctrine, Russian nuclear doctrine, or how they work, they would, for example, if Russia wanted to strike the UK, they would take out the UK's ability to hit them back. So military bases, Air Force base, of course they're military. So you're looking at military bases, naval yards, so that any docks, any civilian airports, places that they keep nuclear weapons. And guys, let's not be under no illusion. The Russians have got a pretty good idea where we keep our nuclear weapons. So let's not sugarcoat things. So all those will be taken out. Now, so can Britain defend against them? Well, at the moment, I've not seen any evidence of that. Also, with that, if the Russians wanted to do a further strike, then you've got big cities, you've got all the civilian ports, airports, you've got all the train stations, any industrial hubs, all these sort of places. If you want to go a step further, you've got all the weapons manufacturing plants, you've got all this sort of stuff. But initially, the first strike would be just basically to take Britain's ability to strike back. And then the Russians would say, hey guys, if you want us to keep going, we'll keep going, or you can surrender. And that's the most likely course of action. Do I think that would happen? Not yet. I think we're a long way off that at the moment. And let's not forget, you know, we have some good submarine capability and nobody knows where the submarines are, and the submarines can fire autonomously and act autonomously with satellite communications and such. But the message I want to get to you guys is things are ratcheting up at such a level and nobody's even noticing. Look at the rhetoric. Look at these people talking, you know, munitions facilities going into overdrive. It's not going to be long, guys, before conscription. They're talking about conscription again and again. They're not going to talk about conscription. They're going to talk about, you know, compulsory military service. They're going to talk about huge recruitment drives for the military because they're going to need people. They're going to need more people. Also, with that, remember the optics. When all this sort of stuff starts happening, look at it from the other side. And what are the Russians looking at? What are our enemies? What's their perspective of it? Guys, I don't see this ending anytime soon. There's certainly no tangible path for peace. And all that I see is the situation getting worse and worse and worse. And any day now, the Russians could break through. And what's going to happen if the Russians break through? Well, the French have already said, if the Russians break through, we're going to send French troops in. If you didn't see my video yesterday, guys, go and give that a watch and a thumbs up because, you know, I cover that in depth. Guys, I'm going to leave it there because I've been rabbiting for 11 minutes. Do you want me to do longer videos like this where I give a more deeper dive analysis into these situations? Or do you just want them fast bullet point, you know, TikTok style? Let me know what you think, guys. And if you've not done so already, please give this a like and a subscribe. Really helps me out when you do that. And I will see you guys tomorrow.